Judaism at this point is that they believe that Zohar, Kabbalah, was given as part of the Torah Shabbal Peh at Har Sinai. That's another discussion for another day, but it starts to become tricky, especially whenever Zohar and the commentary starts to stray away from the narrative, from the Peshat, the plain meaning of the Torah. And that's what the Zohar is not. The Zohar is not the plain meaning of the Torah. And that's what we need to focus on. People need to focus on keeping the mitzvos, praying 3 times a day, doing what they need to do to be better human beings. Worry about learning halakha. These people that are studying the Zohar, are they Talmudic scholars, or are they even masters of the written Torah? They want to start bulging on into these mystical musings and all this esoteric knowledge. People need to focus and stay in the lane with mitzvos, and the world would be a better place. This study of these, like I said, these mystical musings that your soul's better than this person and this person's comparable to an animal, and come on, man. You know what I mean? We're all made in the image of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Simple as that.
I have a video up on my Facebook page of a good friend. He makes really good videos. I promote his channel. He goes by From Reporter, F-R-U-M Reporter,
Okay.
From Reporter. He says the more learned a scholar, the more a person has Torah, a knowledge of Torah, the more lenient and the more kind a person is. These people that want to judge you, these people that want to call you every name in the book, people that want to say all these different things, they're obviously people that don't have any sort of real knowledge of Torah, because they wouldn't be saying the things they'd be saying about you. If they actually knew Torah, they wouldn't be calling you a heretic. They call you every name in the book. Right. Welcome to the room, Rabbi. We have Rabbi. How are you? Do you think that's a fair thing to say, Rabbi? That if the more that a Torah that a person knows, actually studies, the more kind, they're not so judgmental, they're not so harsh on a person.
I don't think it matters. I'm not of the opinion that Torah is there to make you good. I believe Torah is there to make you better. So, if you're a piece of crap, when you come to Torah, you're going to be a piece of crap with Torah. But if you're a decent individual striving to do the right thing without Torah, it's just going to polish you up. This is why you have people blowing themselves up in the name of their religion and chopping people's heads off. And they study their book every day or claim to believe in an ethical God. So I believe everyone is born with a basic sense of morality, with a basic sense of knowing what's right and wrong, right? And the Torah is there to perfect you and take you the rest of the way. And this is why the ethical playing field is level, in the sense that no one could say that the only reason I do good is because I was taught religion or I was born into a certain family, right? Everyone is born with the same ethical equipment to want to do the right thing and to get to the right philosophy. Now, some people, they break their compass and they end up in the wrong places, but this is because of their doing. This is the only way it could work, because people could say, well, the reason God finds this nation favorable is because God singled them out and gave them the Torah. That's not fair. But we have to say that it's not Torah that makes you ethical in God's eyes. It is you trying to challenge your nature and overcome your predatory nature as a man, overcome your emotions as a woman, that helps one shine. This is why the religion is secondary and ethics is number one.
All right, I hear what you're saying, but we do have people that, Jim Jones, the Davidians. You're saying people have this basic moral compass, but people get suckered in pretty easily.
Well, a lot of those people aren't looking for an ethical outlet when they're trying to join some cult. They're just trying to belong. They're just trying to... A lot of people who join cults, especially those that have to do with mass orgies or cults that are there to sort of point their finger at everybody else who happens to believe differently than they do. I don't think they're really hungry for ethics and morality, right? Because they're not asking what does good. They're asking what feels good. Why? It doesn't make sense when I hear a rabbi call a Christian evil just because he happens to believe in Jesus. Well, that doesn't make you evil, right? That could make you theologically confused, but what makes someone evil or not evil is how you behave. Only because you belong to a movement doesn't mean that God, to use Christian terminology, is going to save you. I don't think that God really cares what you believe. He cares how you behave. This is why. I mentioned yesterday that the Torah doesn't really require belief. It tells you to do stuff. It doesn't tell you to believe anything. Clearly, it tells you don't worship other gods. But that in itself is an action. right? I mean, to believe other gods exist is not a form of worship, even though that in itself could be understood as a form of polytheism. To believe demons exist or angels exist. So it's how you behave. It's all how you behave. But clearly, like, if you don't believe in God, you're not going to want to keep his Torah.
So how can we fix the compass? So what about these people that are wanting to do good, but they're somehow lost? What do we do with them?
Self-introspection. You
All
know,
right.
it's not a coincidence that our greatest biblical heroes were shepherds. They were people who had time on their hands to sort of sit and contemplate. And that's why Abraham was elevated, because on his own, he discovered the notion of ethical monotheism, saying that if he could do it without a book, because that's only later rabbinic legend that teaches that he had the Torah, which I think that washes down the whole Abrahamic experience. I think that the only reason Abraham did good or chose God is because his father passed on the Torah to him, and it was given to Adam by an angel. Right? I think that washes it destroys the whole narrative, the ethical narrative in the Torah. These guys chose good and chose God, like, for the sake of doing good. They realized that this works, and if I teach my children after me in the same way, then they will also live a life of blessing. They'll improve this planet, and as a species, we could progress. Right? I mean, I think that's the only thing that really makes sense and really means anything. Who cares what someone believes? If, for example, Muslims are monotheism junkies. They're so adamant on not splitting God up into pieces and saying that he has a body in any way, but look how many of them behave. So theology means nothing if you're not keeping instructions. This is why Torah means instruction. It doesn't mean narrative. The narrative is the fluff. The prescriptive statements, that's the meat. Right? Anyone could say, I believe this. I mean,
Gotta live it.
I think it's unbecoming of a good God to have a God that judges you based on what you believe, not how you behave. I mean, who cares what someone believes? It's what you do.
Right. That's what me and James were saying. We were going over things that separate Judaism from the other religions, and one thing we said was we all, as a nation, accepted God, and we all heard God. Where others, one guy promoted God and followed them, God, that person or whatever. But that's another thing you're saying. The Judaism is it's a religion of action, not just belief.
Right. It's only action.
Only action. Yeah, mitzvah. Do mitzvah.
You're not going to want to keep anything unless you believe that God is a good God and he first validates himself as good to you. I acknowledge that. But I don't believe there's a spiritual thought police there. Like, just because you happen not to be convinced, because people don't choose to accept foreign ideas out of spite. Well, they do it because they're either not convinced of your idea, perhaps you didn't make the case well enough for them, right? Or they're not familiar with your idea, or whatever theological idea it may be. So why would God punish someone just because he happens to have not gotten the religious memo that we're doing things like this now and not like that? It doesn't really matter, right? I mean, it's ultimately what you do. Now, yes, you have a commandment to love God, but that in itself is an action, right? To love is an action, just like to worship is an action. But if you view it like this, then you're separating the world between Torah keepers and non-Torah keepers, and that's it.
Love is a choice. Well, isn't choice would be an action? Wouldn't you choose to love?
Everything's a choice in terms of that you're choosing to do something, choosing not to do something. It's not a conflict of interest to say that something could be an action and a choice. We choose to keep Shabbat. It's still an action.
William is asking again, is it like what the New Testament says, good works? Is that what we're talking about? Is that what we're referring to?
Right.
Torah is keeping good works?
And works are things you do. That's the thing. There's actually 3 classifications in the New Testament. They're ceremonial laws, metaphysical laws, and practical laws. So they believe that the New Testament has replaced metaphysical concepts in what Christians call the Old Testament. And they also believe that the New Testament, at least many of them believe, that the New Testament did away with the ceremonial laws of what they call the Old Testament. And those ceremonial laws is what they call works. However, every Christian walks around thinking that he's still bound to keep every ethical law in the Torah, because that's what their teacher kept and embodied. Right? But I don't think they could articulate it like that. They'll say works and faith. Well, there's a lot more than works and faith, right? A Christian could believe he's not under the law, but he doesn't feel he's allowed to murder and steal. Why? I mean, that's also part of the law. because I don't think it's a complex religion, or it's complex enough to make those subtle.
Yeah, I never understood that New Testament saying you're not saved by good works, but by faith alone. Never really made sense to me. I mean, what does that? Jesus didn't go around breaking Shabbos. At least I don't think he did. So Tommy has a question. Or I'm not sure if it's a question, but it's to the rabbi. He says, "You say you know who Jesus is not?" Question mark. I don't know if that's a statement, that's a question, that's a remark. I'm not sure what that means.
I don't. What I do know is what the title Messiah is not, and it's not in the Torah. But you don't even have to try to defeat Jesus. Like, just taking a literal approach to what appears in the 5 books of Moses would get you to the conclusion that the person that he claims to be is not even necessary to our religion or to our theology.
Well, to be fair, did Jesus ever claim to be the Messiah? Or is that what other people said he was?
He didn't deny it, and when people said it, he said that man did not reveal this to you, but your Father in heaven. Paul clearly said he was the Messiah. I mean, I don't think anyone could really walk around saying that he didn't claim to be the Messiah.
And Paul never met Christ, but but Paul never met JC. He was riding on his donkey and fell off, hit his head on the rock, and then he found God. I mean, well, that's according to the story.
The only reason we know whether this individual existed is because of the books that were written about him. I mean, he never wrote anything. So then you would have to come to the conclusion that even the writers of those books didn't think that he thought he was the Messiah. Not that I believe they were quoting him verbatim in these books, but he only exists to us by these books, right? I mean, outside of that statement in Josephus that everyone acknowledges was a forgery. And
right, what would be the point of the New Testament? I mean, what else could he be?
Right, that's what I mean.
If he's not the Messiah, what else is he?
Well, the Torah itself doesn't revolve around the notion of a Messiah. It revolves around a good God and his instructions to improve this world. That's it. Or wherever you happen to live. And that's all we see in the 5 books of Moses. That if you keep these laws, he's going to bring rain in your season, you're going to see your children grow old, you're going to live in peace, right? It never talks about an afterlife. Now, I believe in an afterlife, but I'm just sticking to the literal part of what the Torah requires me to acknowledge in terms of what appears in the revelation that was given to us, that I believe in faith, and on Mount Sinai was given to us. From that perspective, the idea of a Messiah is an optional belief. Now, if you believe God is going to condemn you to hell because of an optional belief, then, I mean, I fear that you may fall into other religions too, just because it doesn't seem that logic is a strong suit of yours, if you believe that.
So what can we say Jesus is then? At the end of the day...
It doesn't matter. It doesn't, I mean...
He was just a good Jew? Good Jew?
Yeah, I don't know, like, if what's written about him is accurate. It's irrelevant. And there's a lot of people who appear in books, there's characters that I admire, right? But I don't walk around saying he's
Fair enough. James, how we're going to close this statement? How we're going to close it up?
No, yeah, I was just going to agree with the rabbi that the Torah is based on service to God, not based on we're waiting for Messiah. Of course, we pray and hope for a Davidic ruler again that it will be in Eretz Yisrael, but that's not the focal point of the Jewish religion, and it shouldn't be the focal point of any religion. The focal point of Judaism is Hakadosh Baruch Hu, is God. Simple as that.